Okay, so the lecture for Module 2 here, I'm going to focus on something that we call the labor-leisure decision. But before I get there, just a real quick background or some motivation about why this fits in this chapter. Right, so in intermediate economics, what we're really doing is getting deeper into the theory that underlies some of the stuff you did in your introductory courses. Right, so oftentimes I say, look, we know about supply and demand, and really what we're trying to do now is get into the heads of the people that are making these decisions. What's really going on with consumers when they decide how much of a good to purchase? Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to build the model of what's in their head. Okay, so the model of what's in their head, we call this consumer theory. They're going to maximize. Okay, we're going to ask them to do the best they can, and specifically they're going to maximize their utility, which is our measure of their well-being. However, they can't consume unlimited amounts of goods. They can't consume as much as they might like because it's subject to a constraint, in this case, a budget constraint. Okay, so much of what you're reading about in the chapter is building this theory of consumer maximization. And again, what we're trying to do is get into the head of the consumer. Now, remember that households, that consumers play two roles. Okay, so just basic circular flow. Remember that although we oftentimes focus on the product market, right? So the product market, the firm is giving goods and services to the households, and in exchange the households are passing money, right? So this is usually where we see the household on the demand side and the firm on the supply side. There's a whole other half to the economy. Okay, so we have the bottom half of the circular flow here, where we watch inputs, and in this case, in the factor market or the input market, we have the opposite relationship. Okay, so here, the households are the ones doing the supplying, so think of workers going to work for the firm, they're supplying their time, and the firm is the one who demands the resource, right, who's looking to purchase in this case. So the labor-leisure decision that I'm going to use today is in this bottom part. Okay, the labor-leisure decision is here. The household is providing labor as an input into production, and we're going to talk about the labor market, and in particular, the labor supply curve. So there's a number of really good videos that I linked to that are on Khan Academy, and the textbook author has done some as well that focus more on this part of it. Right, that focus more on the consumer's decision making. And what I want to do is show you a very similar analysis, although one that focuses on the worker or the labor decision. Okay, so let's get started here. So the labor-leisure trade-off. Okay, so we're talking about the labor-leisure trade-off is an interesting model. It's a trade-off that can help us really understand not only worker behavior, but also how behaviors may change in response to policy changes. So we're going to start with this basic question of, if you got a raise, okay, if you got more money, would you choose to work more hours or fewer hours? Okay, so before we get too deep into the models, just think about that for a second. If you got a raise, on one hand, you might decide to work more hours because now you're earning more money